I mean, I've always been a cyclist. I've always been like super into bikes and super into like building stuff and making stuff, and I always had the dream to make bikes. And to see them flex this much, you're like, wow, shit, this can flex a lot.
Yeah. And under a lot of force because I think,
Yeah,
I don't know the exact numbers, but I've always heard that like when you're sprinting, that impact force of your foot on the ground is
yeah,
like 4 or more
yeah,
times your
yeah.
body weight.
Yeah,
So
we
it's
often use like 3 times, yeah, 4 times in like extreme case, yeah, something like
yeah,
that, yeah. So it's yeah, big forces and like 2 million times, and I'm like looking at that and thinking, okay, I got a car. At that time I was doing like cross country like riding and some racing. Yeah, I had a carbon bike, and I was thinking, okay, on that bike, like carbon's only used for lightness, but in there, like at my work, at my job, at the Usher prosthetic company, I was seeing like witnessing all this flex. Why isn't anyone using this like on bikes?
and
Like,
the difference is the flex is not carbon fiber. It's a net. You call it S2. It's a glass fiber.
yeah, in our
What's
forks,
yeah? What's
yes.
the difference?
Yeah, so basically, so at first, okay, in the feet they use carbon, but I found out that they had some old stock of S2 glass fiber that nobody had ever used at the prosthetic company. I was like, okay, I mean, can I see like the spec sheet for this material? And I looked at it and I was like, shit, okay, this stuff, this can flex. So like carbon, so like the standard carbon you have in bikes, like the standard modulus carbon, that can flex like 2%, give or take, before it like snaps. But this glass fiber, and it's not the kind you have like in like boats and like surfboards and stuff. That's e-glass. That's like pretty basic stuff. And that can actually get up to like 6%.
Which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you
It's
see
yeah.
what it does,
I mean, yeah, you can
it's
like.
a lot of
I
flex.
mean, you've tried. Like, I
Yeah,
remember
you
you
can't
trying
break
to
those
break the
things.
springs for our forks. Yeah,
Yeah.
you you can basically make the ends of the springs on our like suspension forks and make them like touch one another, and like it just doesn't break. Like, so that's yeah, 6%. Therefore,
Yeah.
it just, I mean, that's a lot of elongation without breaking. Uh, so I took this material and made like some just like plates, some so just like leaf springs out of it, and then I like started like stress testing it. We had like these like machines that just like like load, basically load cells like that applied more and more and more load, and you can like do the graph and all that. At first we broke some samples of the carbon fiber, and then we like put like a spring of the glass fiber in, and it just kept on going and going and going and going and going. It was just like, you was like watching it, and like I remember
You're
my
just waiting
boss
for it to
was,
explode, right?
yeah, like we were just like, it just doesn't end. So like it took on like this like big, I mean, usually you just see them like flex a little bit, but this just like became like a big like S curve, and we're like, wow, this is wild. Then my sort of like, big aha moment was sort of like, okay, shit, this material, nobody's using it for anything, like, but I don't know, actually it's used for like to armor like tanks and stuff because
Hmm.
it's so impact resistant. But like in sports like cycling, nobody was using it because people were obsessed with stiffness and low weight, which is fine, but I mean, in some cases you want flexibility and like compliance. I started losing sleep basically because I was just like, I was so like excited by the potential of this material,
Yeah.
what you could do.
And were you already thinking of like where? Because I think a lot of times, when you think of flex in a bike, right? A lot of people are talking about compliance in the seat stays or
Yeah.
the seat tube and seat post to add a little bit of comfort and all that. Is that kind of where you were thinking, or like had you thought
So
about how you were going to use this?
yeah, so I never, in the beginning, it was always about the fork. So to be honest, I don't know exactly why. I mean, it would have been way easier to do it in the back because it's a much easier. Yeah, that you have like a big triangle. Sort of, it's a much easier like mechanical problem to solve. Sort of, but a fork is just like a straight line down, and it's hard to make a system in there somehow that works without. I mean, telescopic's the only thing that was like done like to any success before our forks. Uh, Maybe it's like, okay, one like with forks, that's a component you can put on a bike. You don't need to make the entire bike. So maybe that like caused me to like start to think along those lines with
Right.
forks. Uh, but then maybe also like at the same time, I was like, obviously I was making prosthetics. So, and I was thinking, how do we make like a shock absorber or like a suspension foot, like an ankle basically.
Right.
And that's like a similar thing. I mean, your leg is like it's like a fork. It's like it's something straight, and you want to get like a small compact system in there to absorb hits. So sort of like I was making these prototypes for these feet with like a similar system going on, and then I was making like bike forks and like applying for like government grants and stuff for that.
So you had the grant, you had a little bit of money, and you had some prototypes at this point.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you saw the original prototype.
yeah, it's giant. I mean,
Yeah.
it looks like, literally, like I think I see it, and every time I think of like the Iron Giant, right?
Yeah,
Like this big clunky metal contraption.
It's close to 7 kilos, I think. So,
and you guys test riding this, you were wearing like full body armor and full face helmets, because who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. So at that time, so it was then me, Gutberg came on board with me there and started the whole thing. And then Berger was on the sideline pretty early, like almost from the beginning, pretty much. So he's the engineer. He's still with the company, actually. So we were like out there, out in the woods somewhere in Iceland, where nobody could see us, basically, because like, we're starting to ride it before we filed the patent, and then nobody can see it. So we were riding these like super sketchy looking prototypes, and like nothing had been like tested. I mean, like mechanically tested, because we didn't have that machinery. So what we did, we just put on like a full face helmet and a body armor, and then we just like rolled out. But then like the big problem is making. It's no problem to make something that is like compliant. I mean, you have like forks on, like, let's say like World War II era bikes. You have like forks that like extend like J-shaped forks, and they're pretty flexy. I mean, they get some like flex from them. But like if you take it too far and make them like too much of a J, it becomes like all over the place. So it just flexes, and like you have like no control over the bike anymore. So like the real problem is getting that flex, but controlling the wheel like straight, like keep it in plane, sort of, and like along a straight line, or relatively.
Avoiding any kind of like torsional twists, and in any direction, right?
Exactly. So you can like feel in control. So that was like the big problem, and like the first prototypes I made actually to try that, they were actually just like just two parts. So the fork is like the front part on both sides and the rear part on both sides. So it's 4 parts basically moving together, like the suspension part of it. But the first one was just like just 2 parts that I then mounted this to like my parents' like garage door, and then we like jumped on the other end, and like we have like videos. Like in the first grant applications we filed in Iceland, they bring this up when I meet the guys from like the government body there. They were like laughing about like seeing videos of us like jumping on this thing there on a garage door, and then showing pictures of what it would become like as a bike fork. So to get that like resistance to like lateral movement, that was the big thing, sort of. So yeah, we were super happy to see it just like move, or feel it move.
And then eventually you went from that monstrosity to carbon fiber prototypes that you guys
we went through like 2 more iterations, I think, of aluminum. We scaled it down. So first one was like, I don't know, 60, 70, 80 mil or so of travel. Advantage of this technology is basically like the immediate like response. So smaller impacts. It was always going to shine there relatively. So we scaled it down, made other like aluminum like forks that were like not like 6 kilos, but maybe 2 kilos or something. Yeah, scaled it down a bit, and like mounted brakes on it and tried how like the torque from the brake, how that would affect it all. And then from this we went over to carbon prototypes, and we like spent all the money we had like from the grants on a mold, and then we were just like laying up carbon fiber into that ourselves. So we got like the attic up above my dad's law office. It was like up on the 5th floor, so we had to carry like this mold that weighed like 80 pounds or something. And then we were like we used actually the law office meeting room, like whenever they like quit work or left work in the afternoon, we went into the meeting room with the carbon fiber rolls and like started cutting fibers.
So conference table was your cutting table.
Yeah. Turned the conference table into a cutting table. I mean, you know how carbon fiber bikes are made, and then you have these 2 parts mold.
Yeah, you got to have a giant press, or at least a lot of pressure. I guess
we just bolted them together.
Yeah, you have to heat it up, like.
Yeah, so we made the oven ourselves, like a big ass oven that we could make it cheaply somehow rather than buying something that we couldn't afford. So that oven was actually in the file room. We put it in the file room of the law office.
Your dad come in the morning and be like, guys, what's going on here? Yeah, just don't blow it up.
They have like a home built oven, in the file room of a law. Yeah, so that's how we did it. And like but it was like it was was pretty funny. So every night was like a sort of like a almost like a gamble. So we spent the entire, it was like 2 days making every fork, like cutting everything, laying everything in, and all that. And then we had to make the bladder that goes into it, that we get the pressure into, and to like compress the carbon up against the molds. So actually, like I was thinking now, to this date, I still don't know why we didn't use an air compressor for. But what we did is instead we used like 2 bike pumps. So we had like.
So you had to keep pumping it the whole time it's baking, or
Yeah,
just to get it to a certain.
In a perfect
point?
world, I mean, the bag wouldn't leak like air, so you wouldn't need to
In
be
a
like
perfect
inflating
world.
it. Yeah. But like I want to say, like every second time or so, like it leaked too much, and we just couldn't keep the pressure up on the carbon. So we had to like throw it all into the garbage, like 2 days of work, throw it all into the garbage, and then start again. And then we were like just crossing our fingers that the next bag would hold.
I
And then,
can't imagine,
yeah.
like, who did you guys have to draw straws to see who would ride that first prototype?
We were probably all eager to do it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got to be a little scary though. Maybe
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
babies that like test it a little.
Yeah, a little, and then a little bit more, then some more. Yeah. But yeah, I remember like at one point we were like, how do we make this thing? Like, how do we produce it?
Yeah,
So
because
that
you
was like-
wanted to ideally, as an Icelandic company, produce and manufacture,
Yeah.
and do everything in Iceland.
Yeah. I mean, that's like the romantic like view, sort of like, and that's like, I mean, making stuff is fun. It's fun to like be hands-on and do stuff. That's what it's all about. But like making bike frames or forks, when you have like these like hollow structures, it's just so much more work to do it properly. You don't need to like cut so many layers of fibers and place them in the right places and all that. And it's like we started talking to more and more people, and we just realized, hey, okay, I mean, the knowledge clusters for this kind of like carbon fiber structure making is like, it's over in Asia. So we just like, okay, hey, yeah, we just gotta go there and see if we can find anyone to work with, sort of.
So you threw the prototype in a backpack, and
Pretty
you and
much.
Gudberg flew to China. And
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much. So literally, we had it like in our backpack, like sticking up here. But like, we figured out through, I think it was a Bike Radar article that was like covering like the bike business behind the scenes, sort of like they were like showing into a bike factory somewhere. It didn't say anywhere like where that factory was, but like one of the pictures was like shot outside of the factory, and there was like a visible like a road sign somewhere in the side of the picture. Then like me and Gudberg, we reached out to our network of like just people we knew in Iceland, and found this guy that like had been an exchange student in China. And he spoke Chinese. He figured out what the signs were saying, and from that we figured out in what city it was, and et cetera, et cetera. So, which led us to like start researching the city of Xiamen in China to find like possible suppliers there.
you just hit the ground and went door to door factories and.
Pretty much, yeah. So we just like did like researched everything we could online, trying to find like all the possible factories in the area there, and sent out a bunch of emails. And
So you had appointments at least, or at least some contacts.
But we had like no idea with who. Just like, I mean, because just appointment with someone who claims to make carbon something for bikes.
Yeah. How many
basically.
factories did you visit?
Probably like 10-ish or so, something like that. And it was pretty funny. So most of them were like smaller factories we were visiting. And like almost like a garage style almost factory, like most of them. So we were pretty clueless at this time, and we didn't know anything about the bike industry. We were just like trying to figure things out. So we went there, and I remember like going into meeting rooms, and in China, in so many of them, like tea was such a big thing. So I remember like spending hours and hours. They were like making like carefully making the perfect like cup of tea, and like set by this like tea making tables, and we're just doing a lot of that and not talking about business. I was like, what's going on here? And then eventually like from all these visits to these like small factories, we eventually saw like through them all, they kept mentioning basically this big factory in town that was like that only like the top end brands worked with. And we picked up on that like in more and more places. And like, okay, we didn't reach out to them. So we sent them an email to every email we could possibly find for that factory. And like the day we were about to fly back home to Iceland, they replied.
Like right before your flight.
Yeah. Yeah, in the morning, we got up, me and Guðberg this morning, we're like, hey, got a reply here. It's like, they can meet us like in 2 hours. It's like, okay, our flight is in, 6 hours? Okay, we can make it. So we went there, and then like, we were amazed. So they brought in like a big team. So it's like, it's a huge factory. Like, we were pretty impressed just seeing it. And they had like a team of, I don't know, 10 people or something like in the meeting with us. So, which was super cool. And we just saw, okay, yeah, these guys are like the real deal. It came as a surprise to us, but they were interested in working with us. So we really like pulled out the fork from our backpack, put it on the table, and they were like, oh, like checking it out. What's going on here? Because like, there's so many
like never seen anything like this before.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. Because like there are like new things, how you attach the springs like to like the fork, how you make the pockets that it goes into. So
because this is the same factory that produces bikes for
like
some of the biggest brands.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and like no small brands.
Yeah. And it's not the kind of factory where this little upstart with almost no funding can typically go into.
Exactly.
Right?
No, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, later on, they told me stories about like all these road racers or whatever that came to them and had an idea to start a bike brand, but they never took them on. So we tried to like sell it to them, like that they should work with us. And I mean, I didn't know much about China then, so I thought, okay, everything that is like government backed must sound good. I assumed in China. I didn't include the fact that like our government backing was like $50,000.
It's just we're just government backed.
Yeah, we're just we're supported by the Icelandic government. So I made a big deal out of that. And then, but I don't. It probably wasn't that sold them onto it, but because like I found out later, the sales manager there that was like leading that meeting at that time, he told me like why they took us on, and he told me that they never expected it to become anything, sort of, but they just saw like intriguing prototypes, and that the fact that we made them ourselves, they were like intrigued by that. So they were like, okay, it would be a fun thing for our R&D department.
Exactly. If nothing else, we'll learn a new technique that we can take and apply to our other customers.
So for them, it was just fun, just like to spice it up a little bit, making all these frames. They were all like pretty much the same stuff for all the different brands. And they got this like weird thing to try out and see if it led to anything somehow, somewhere, someone. So yeah, basically it took us on as an R&D project. So yeah, but they never expected it to reach the volumes it has done now.
Yeah.
But
I think for you guys, you probably didn't realize at the time, but like, had you not gotten that factory, you might not be where you are today.
No, I seriously think we would be out of business, I think.
Yeah, because there have been brands that have gone with a factory that, especially smaller ones where maybe you can't afford to have somebody over there or a manufacturer's rep on site to monitor like almost daily or hourly what's going on, right? Like sometimes you don't get exactly what you asked for. Yeah. And that's literally put some brands out of business because they'll get a container or multiple containers of a product that doesn't meet spec. And what, you don't have a lot of recourse sometimes.
No, exactly. You have like no buffer to deal with stuff like that as a startup. And like in our case, because like so much that we had to like figure out in the process. I was there like to begin with. I was there like for me and Guðberg and Bergur, the first guys in the company. We were there like combined like, I don't know, at least 4 times, probably like 6 times a year, something like that. Because there was a lot of like stuff to like figuring out how to manufacture this thing. And if we had been working with anyone that wasn't as like professional, as good, they're ridiculously good. They're so good at all the stuff that we are bad at. And like, so we like complement each other pretty well. So if we had been working with a lesser factory, they would have been like screwing things up, obviously, and then we would have ended up with a product, as you said, that wouldn't meet spec or would just break, and then that would like rub off on the fundamental concept, and then people would think that the fundamental concept isn't any good because the product that we made was bad. So it probably would have sunk us, I think. Right. So like this meeting there that we just managed to like squeeze in just before we left back home to Iceland. I think that's one of the, like in our story, I mean, it's always like you have these moments that are like deciding moments, sort of. This is definitely like one of those moments that it flicked like the right way, I think.
Yeah. A lot of it's luck, but you got to make the luck. You guys,
you gotta
took
be
that
there.
meeting, right?
Yeah.
You put the effort in, you flew there. That's great. And so now you have a factory, and they're going to make your fork. But I think next we'll talk about how that came to be, how you went from a concept to, okay, now we have a bunch of forks.
Yeah,
Now
we need to sell them.
Yeah.
Yeah, who's gonna buy them? Yeah.